Good morning. I, Dr. Usha Dikshit, Assistant Professor, Vasanta College for Women Rajghat, is hereby to discuss the factors which affect the demand. Here, the various factors which affect the demand for the product are as follows. Number one is the price of commodity. It is the most important factor affecting the demand for the commodity. Generally, there exists an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. It means that as price increases, the quantity demanded falls due to a decrease in the satisfaction level of consumers. So we can say here that there is an inverse relationship between the price and the quantity demanded. Number two is the price of related goods. The demand for the commodity is also affected by changes in the price of related goods. The related goods may be of two types. Number one is substitute goods and number two is the complementary goods. Now let's have the look on the substitute goods. The substitute goods are those goods that can be used for the satisfaction of a particular wants, like a tea or a coffee. An increase in the price of substitute goods leads to an increase in the demand for the commodity and vice versa. Whereas the second is the complementary goods. Complementary goods are those goods which are used together to satisfy a particular want, like cars and petrol. An increase in the price of complementary goods leads to a decrease in the demand for the given commodity. Now, the third factor which affect the demand is the income of the consumer. We can see here that the change in the income of the consumer also influences the demand for different goods. The demand for normal goods tends to increase with the increase in income and vice versa. On the other hand, the demand for inferior goods like coarse grain tends to decrease with an increase in income and vice versa. Now the fourth factor which affect the demand for the product is the taste and preference of the consumers. The taste and preference of the consumers directly influence the demand for a commodity. They include changes in fashion, customs, habits, etc. If a commodity is in fashion or is preferred by the consumer, then demand for such a commodity increases. On the other hand, demand for a commodity falls if the consumers have no taste for that commodity. Now, the fifth factor which affect the demand is the expectation of change in the price in future. If the price of a certain commodity is expected to increase in near future, then people will buy more of that commodity than what they normally buy. There exists a direct relationship between expectation of change in the future and change in demand in the current period. For example, to rise in the future, it's the present demand will increase. And the sixth factor which affect the demand is the emergencies. The demand effect during conditions of emergencies like war, flood, famines, etc. During such periods, people emphasize on purchasing more with increased price with the fear of scarcity of the product. And the seventh factor which affect the demand is the ignorance of consumers. Sometimes consumers buy more at a high price due to ignorance of the market, commodity, and the price by mistake of deceptive labels and packing. And the eighth factor which affect the demand is the climate and weather conditions. Climatic and weather conditions also directly affect the demand for a particular product. Like woolen and warm clothes are demanded in cold regions when compared to hot regions, where less of the products are demanded, same as the case of demand for umbrellas in rainy season, ice creams in summer seasons, and so on. So, the ninth factor which affect the demand is the business cycle. Business cycle directly affects demand. Demand for commodities decreases during deflation and increases during inflation. The tenth factor is the population. In more populated countries, demand for goods is more when compared to less populated countries. When more population increases, children's ratio will be more than the old age, resulting in demand for toys, medicines, school items, stationeries, etc. And the next factor which affect the demand is the quantity of money. We can call it as a 11th factor. If banks and other financial institutions provide cheap and easy loans, demand increases in such conditions. Nowadays, banks are providing very easy loans for housing and vehicles, which affect demand to a greater extent. Last and not the least, the government policy is the factor which affect the demand. Here the government policy also affects demand to the greater extent. If the government levies more tax on any commodity, its price goes up, resulting in a decrease of demand for the commodity and vice versa. Thank you.